Welcome to another episode of Top Lines and Tails, your weekly livestock podcast. And as always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Harbro, for their continued support. This week, I'm delighted to have on the podcast another first because I'm speaking to somebody whose birthday it is today. So happy birthday, Janet Green. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Andy. Nice to be here.
And Jan, I gather you've been out for lunch today. You've been spoilt, is that right? Yes,
I've had a cider and flowers as well. So doing really well today.
You got to get some flowers in. That's that really cheerful, chappy man of yours, John Green, in the background, bringing you some flowers, giving you some flowers.
Yeah, he's rattling change at me now, proving how much it's cost him. He's only got pennies left in his pocket.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, it's great to speak to you on your birthday, as I said, and it was my birthday a couple of days ago as well. And,
yes, it was. Yeah.
I've got a couple of shoulders of lamb in the oven cooking at the moment for people coming around for dinner tomorrow. So,
brilliant!
The poor lamb.
It's a bit of a long way to come, like.
Well, there you go. You are invited. I'm not sure whether John's invited, but you're definitely invited down there. And the poor lamb's running around with no shoulders now. He's not doing.
Oh, he's got wheels now, has he?
Exactly that. Well, I should mention that, Jan, you and I go back a long time, and this series is called Characters in Livestock, and you've always been a fantastic character in and amongst the breed, and those that don't know you, of course, were involved very early in what was the Belgian blue breed, now the British blue breed, because I got corrected by Mamie Patterson for mentioning that they were still the Belgian blue breed. So British blues that they are. And we caught up at Carlisle a few months ago, and I promised I'd get you on and give you a bit of stick, Jan. So
yeah, and you reminded me at the Highlands as well.
You can run, but you can't hide, girl.
I know.
Especially on your birthday. So if we go back to the beginning, as I said, the British blues, and again, I was involved in the early days with the cattle coming in back in the late, I suppose, mid-80s. And
it was mid-80s they came in, wasn't it?
And you were always
85, there. Yeah.
In and amongst it right from the beginning with blue cattle. So you've been in the blue cattle. You'd probably be one of the longest-serving members. I wouldn't say older members because John's obviously 20 years older than you, but one of the longest.
I think the oldest member is Graham Coates now.
Okay.
I think Graham, he'll be one of the older ones, won't he?
Well, you tell me. I know obviously Tom Ashton's still with us and doing...
No, well, Tom's number one. He was number one in the herd book.
Uh-huh. But we're going back now to middle 80s, so I dread to think how long ago that is.
Yeah.
But it's a long time. But you would have come in, just let us know a little bit about how you and John got into the blue cattle right from the start there. That's where you're from. Let's go back to the beginning. Whereabouts is home?
We're originally from Derbyshire. We met through young farmers, as you do. Farming communities always get together through young farmers. And we met together in Derbyshire. And then we saw blues at Lincoln Show. Okay. And I think it was Sue Eaton-Williams and them had got them. And we were like, Pip Sennett, that's a name from the past. Yep. And we thought, like them. And then started looking into them. And we bought some crossbreds to start with. That's how we started with grade C's. Grade E's they started at, the crossbreds.
Grade E's, just take me back to grade E, so that's first cross.
They used to grade, this started off, that if you had a grade E, it was like a half bred, like out of a Holstein or whatever. And you could grade them up if you wanted. But originally in the start of the blues, that's how they started, to help people get in them. So that's how we started. But then the bug bit, and we bought a first cow called Wardiance, and she was from Jeremy Hoskins from Park House, from Cirencester. Right. We bought her in calf, and she had a heifer calf, and that was us started.
And she had been an import, was she, Jan?
She was originally an import that Jeremy bought in. And then a second cow we brought through the society, and that was a lottery. So you asked to buy a heifer, and it was picked for you, and it was a lottery. They used to put your name in a jar, and they pulled the cow's name out, and that one's yours. And you didn't have a choice of which one it was or what it was. And I ended up with a white heifer, and I thought, oh my God, what have we bought? But I mean, she was wonderful. We showed her, and she did us a lot of good. and she stopped with us. She was 13 or 14 before we lost her.
Wow. Okay.
And that was us. And we've bred all these years, and gone on. I mean, we had Oxcroft Lionheart. He was his hero, that bull that we bred that was champion at Chelford. And then he went back for resale and was champion at Carlisle. And he's the only bull that's ever done that.
So try that again. So you bred him. He was champion at Chelford, and you sold him.
He was champion at Chelford out of a cow called Peel Ivory by Kissinger, a bull that Linalux had then. And he was champion at Chelford in a 96, I think, but don't gamble on that date. And then the guy fell ill suddenly and he had to sell his cows. So he took the bull back to Carlisle 2.5 years later, and it was in May. And he was champion there as well.
Did he make profit? Did he make profit on it?
He didn't. He made the same money as we'd sold him for. Bang on.
Oh, well, he just borrowed him, and he just borrowed him for a year too. No, that's brilliant. I mean, going back to in those days, and the cattle were a bit different back then. I mean, you're both advocate that they.
Oh yeah, I mean,
when you're getting a lottery or a raffle, as you said there, with when you're buying fixed price, I guess you'd be buying those early ones coming in. You'd have to hope that they were right and straight, and obviously they were for you.
I mean, she was lucky. We were very good. Superb, the cow that we bought. She was a very good legged cow and everything. And she bred some tremendous females. I mean, as the years have gone now, I mean, we've lost her as the pedigrees have gone. But I mean, the very first cow, Wardy Aunts, that we bought, I mean, if I could find pictures of her, and I mean, people have been mortified. I mean, her legs were horrendous. I mean, they were right under her belly, literally. But I mean, we thought we got the world because they were the new thing. They were going to be, I mean, they are still very, I mean, they have become very popular as the terminal sire for people wanting females more than anything, I think.
Of course, we'll go on to where the breed's got to just now. We're going back to those early days, as you said. We'd turn up at the Royal Show, and it was almost like a freak show, really. They'd come along, and the Angus breeders and even the Charolais breeders would come along, and they'd come along and have a laugh, really, and point the fingers, and we just...
Oh, and prodigy cattle with a stick, like they were going to attack them or do something.
Explode.
Yeah, it was like...
But we held our own, didn't we? I say we because I was.
We did, yeah.
I was dressing cattle for other people, although they weren't my own, and we held our own. And the classes. You remember the first class at the Royal? Would you be there when we were all parked out in the marquee, sort of out the back as an afterthought, if you like? And a hell of a time.
Oh, I know. They were like. I mean, we were doing the Newarks and the Lincolns and to try and get them that they could have classes. And I mean, we were put with Highlanders and Romanolas and all things like that. And I mean, we'd be put last because the judge is like, oh, don't like that, oh, them bloody freaky things. And I mean, the Highlanders had come before us. Nothing against the Highland cattle. I mean, I'm not taking anything, but I mean, and you were in the lines, and as soon as you said that you were bred. Well, I say British blue, but I mean, to me, they are Belgian blues. That in them days, that's where. I mean, they used to look at you like you had two heads, and you weren't right. You wanted locking up or something.
And you say, along with the Highlanders, I mean, you couldn't get two breeds more different. I remember, Ben Coots judging the Highlanders one time, and the blues were in there, and I think his eyes nearly fell out of his head when he saw these blues alongside his beloved Highlanders, and totally different creatures. And they came in. They came in for a reason, though, John, didn't they? They came in because they were an animal that had obviously the exceptional myostatin, double muscle gene, and bred back to the shorthorns that we know. But they came in for a job for that exceptional muscle, and over the years they improved. Or I'd like to say they improved a lot of the breeds that they put on by putting some back-ended, and that's what they were about.
I mean, they were the perfect sire for a Holstein, and they still are. If they want to go a calf to go on. They do. They produce the goods without much hassle, and that's the thing. That's where their forte started, was to put onto a dairy cow, and that's what was pushed to start with. And I mean, it was all white bulls. I mean, you didn't want a coloured bull.
Yeah. And that's exactly, of course, where Tom Ashton came in with Lulu, didn't he, Tom?
Yeah.
He had any dreams that they were going to go on and become a big breed in their own right, but he came in with Lulu and started selling semen to the dairy guys. And as you know, I showed one of the first animals out of one of the dairy animals that came in there. But I mean, that stuff was like, hot cakes, and Tom did brilliantly well. And you would have done well out of it as well, Jan, in those early days.
Oh yeah. I mean, we did okay. I mean, we used to buy baby calves at our local market, Bakewell, and we used to rear them to make them nice little sweet heifer calves, take them to Chelford, to a Chelford sale, the March of the September sale, and folks would buy them like 1-0. So, I mean, we did okay. And, I mean, we used to sell baby pedigree heifers, just sweet little things, 10, 12-month old. You'd get dad and daughter come in to look. And, I mean, you sold well. I mean, we did, we've always kept plodding on, if you know what I mean. We've always been there and done it. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say I push my cattle as much as some of them do, but they go on, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. But you carried on, the both of you carried on showing those cattle, and we had some fun. I remember at Stafford County Show, I can recall.
Oh, that rain. Can you remember that rain at Stafford?
The bloody owl.
You reminded me of a day when when a bull that I'd got of Ron Collins got away off his halter in the middle of the night, and by the time I got there in the morning, he was tied back up again. But somebody had, thankfully, no mobile phones in those days. He'd gone down and served just about all the scimitars, whether they wanted it.
I think anything that was standing that night got nobbled by that bull.
Well,
bovine or not bovine, I think it got done that night.
He certainly knew where it was at, and he went down, and he thought, well, he's away. Nobody's watching, I don't think, but there's nowadays there's no circuit TV, so there might have been some interesting scimitars born later on that year. But
it rained and rained at that show. Oh my God, it was so wet. I'll never forget that show. We slept in the cattle trailer that year, and there was an owl in the car park, and so you were listening to it raining with this bloody owl in this tree. So nobody in the cattle sheds had any sleep at all for the nights that were there. So between the drink and not sleeping, there was some very rough people at that show, very rough.
In the meantime, my bull had gone down. He had no sleep either when he was out there.
Yeah.
But no, they were. I remember being at Cheshire Show as well. Can you remember that? When I think it might have been Nantwich Show. You mentioned John Pips Dennett and a big cow of Pauline Adams, and she was over a ton, and she just stood there, kept sinking into the mud. The longer she stood in the line, the shorter she got. She disappearing into the ground. I don't know why the shows were always so wet back then. We seem to have drier shows these days.
Yeah, we always Bakewell the same. Used to get wet there, didn't we? Used to do them all, but they seem to. Well, I don't know if they've moved dates or what. The weather has changed a bit, but we've done some daft tricks.
I bumped into an old pal of mine, Pete Bodley. Hadn't seen Pete for a while. I saw him at the Royal Welsh, and sends his regards to you. And again, good fun with Pete and Michelle Gardner and Richard Bartle, of course. Bart, you'll be listening to this. Yeah, Bart, big man in amongst the job, working for Pick Stennett back then, and great days. And things moved on for yourself then. You guys went to...
We moved to Aberdeenshire.
You disappeared like 1,000 miles north of the Arctic Circle. I don't know. You're certainly up there somewhere in the north. Tell us where
we moved to Aberdeenshire in 1989. Well, we used to have laying hens in Derbyshire, and a certain lady mentioned that there was salmonella in eggs, and so that finished us very quickly.
Wasn't you the two eggs there when she came to the Stafford Show, was it? Somebody did.
No, it wasn't us. So we'd been looking at Scotland as it was beforehand, so that pushed us on a bit quicker. So we moved to Aberdeenshire in 1989, and we've been up here since then, and we're now settled at a farm called Wrangham near Inch, about 15 miles from Inverurie, 25 miles from Aberdeen. So I suppose we are close to
close to the Arctic Circle. Not quite that close. I do get phone calls from people in Aberdeenshire going, "This is lovely country, and it's probably sunshine."
I mean, it is beautiful countryside up here, and I mean, you know yourself, it's beautiful up here, like when it's not raining or blowing a gale or snowing. But it is lovely up here. I mean, we're very lucky where we are. I wouldn't change it now. I couldn't go back to Derbyshire as much as Derbyshire's my home county, but we do love it up here.
You'll almost, another 40 years, you'll be a local there, John.
Yeah. I might get to just as I'm putting my foot in the hole, they might say, "Oh, she's a local."
When they're bringing you the next lot of flowers you get there, when they're bringing you, that'll be she's almost a local.
She's a local now. We'll give her some flowers. Many years ago, I was called by a very good friend because he came back in the car. We'd been to look at an Angus bull, and he was saying, bloody Saxons are everywhere, because he'd been to a post office looking for the address. And I'm sat in the car going, excuse me? And he says, oh, no, but you don't count. You're Scottish. So I was half and half at that stage, and that was about 10 years ago. So I'm working on it.
Yeah. Oh, well. No, that's good. And you would have taken the blues... The blue cattle up there, and again, early days.
Yeah, they followed us.
The blues, and everybody wondered what the hell's arriving when you turned up for the lorry.
Yeah, we just kept a small amount and brought them with us. That year, we took them to Tourist Show, got champion any other breed, but we looked at again the same. It was like, what the hell? You know what I mean? But slowly they've come. I mean, they're making their way up here now. I mean, the commercial lads use them a lot. They like a bit of blue in the dam for the commercials, for the showy side and everything. So, I mean, since the 30 odd years we've been up here.
We'll go on to that in a second, Jan. I'm just more intrigued, really. Who was judging Terrace Show that put you champion any other breed there? Because they wouldn't be a local themselves, would they?
It was a local, but I couldn't remember. I'd have to look right back. I was judging that first year that we were up here.
You're normally a mine of information, you are, girl, because normally you're my go-to on the early blues. So you've normally got.
John said it was Mackie from Perth, a lad called Mackie from Perth.
Right, okay.
But he's remembered that, but I haven't remembered that.
Oh, you should have sent him a Christmas.
He had some mentals, he said, so. Okay. And he had a few blues or something. Oh, I remember his face now. I can't.
You'd probably remember yours as well. But no, I said to get in there and start showing those. Yeah, it was great. And you're moving, as you said, north into obviously Aberdeen Angus country up there as well. And then, the next time I spoke to you, you were turning out with Aberdeen Angus. So something kind of happened while you were there. What went on?
Well, for a while, we were in between things, and we got managed. We were looking after a guy's pedigree Angus's and an estate. So that's how we ended up showing Angus's, because he wanted them shown and he knew we show the blues. So when we were showing blues, we ended up dragging the Angus's along. So that's how you caught up with me showing Angus cattle. So we've looked after them, 14 years we looked after Logie Angus's.
Right, Logie Angus's, okay, because you used to turn up down to the Highland Show, and I think your Angus's was your meal ticket to go down there with somebody else with
the blues.
Cattle and take your blues as well. So
yeah.
and the Highland Show you won't have missed, I don't think, for a long time. Fantastic show.
No, I don't. I can't. I don't know how many years we've been going to that. Well, since we've been up here, we've nearly had something of one thing or another there. Angus's, and then there used to be always Angus's and blues, and then 92, 93, and then used to take a lot of blues down. I mean, sometimes we used to take 8 or 9. We had breed and exhibited 2 years on the trot, didn't we?
Yeah. And just going back to those early days, then the pair of you, then when would the blues get a class? Because I mean, they couldn't get the class at the Royal Show for a long time, and they would have been a lot later before they got a class at the Highland Show
They'd got classes. They'd got classes when we first started going, didn't they? Okay. At the Highland, yeah. There wasn't many there, but they had got classes. They had put them on for them. I mean, I wouldn't exactly know the year when they actually put them on, but when we first started taking, they'd got. Because there was Alistair Wiley showing for Graham's, weren't they?
Yeah, of course.
Robert
Graham got into a few of those, didn't he? Early doors, and again, Robert Graham being a man who did everything in early doors and did particularly well, didn't he? I think Danny Wiley went in there. Would it be Danny rather than Alistair? I thought, but had.
It could have been Danny. Wanted to start with. Was it Danny or Alistair that was with Graham?
It was Danny.
Graham's. Danny, was it?
Yeah,
with Danny Wiley, yeah.
And Danny would have taken some of those good genetics from Robert Graham's and to set up his own herd. We've had him on the podcast before. No, brilliant. And you've had your share of tickets and success there at the Highland. There be your main show, I suppose.
Yes, it's his main show really. We've had junior male champion with a bull Oxgrove dragon, didn't we, 1 year, a white bull, when white was still in fashion. We had junior female with Phoebe, and then so we've had breeder and exhibited twice.
Okay.
So we've not done bad there. We've always worked away, like.
Mm-hmm. And you still breeding? What kind of numbers of cows have you got there now?
We've about 15. We range between 15 to 20 cows, depending on how it floats up and down. Okay. We're still working away with them.
Bit of embryo transfer.
No, we've stopped doing that a bit. Well, heifers are too expensive. To buy your heifers in, it's like, Jesus, well, you're talking like £1,200-1,500 for a heifer. Yeah. So what we started doing was we put the Solaire on all those blue heifers to get a calf through them. Right. And use to give them a bit of chance, and then we put them back to the blue then. Okay. And well, it works sometimes and it doesn't work all the time.
And carving-wise, again, going back to the early days, and I've spoken to a few blue breeders on here now. Obviously, times have changed, but go back to the early days, carving some of these animals. You'd have the scalpel on standby for cesareans going back the way, and is that all changed now, Jan?
Yeah, you do. You try and give them more of a chance now. As like in the early days, you never gave them a chance. You just went in and got a calf because they were so valuable. I suppose that was another thing. True. But like we've changed this look at them that say like we do put this Solaire on them or the shorthorn and get calves through them, and then put them to the blue. And say if something goes wrong and you have to do a season and it doesn't go right, we put them back to the Solaire or the shorthorn to give them a rest and then go again. And it gives a cow a life, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But then you're still working away with the pedigrees. You're still getting the pedigrees coming through as well. Sure. I mean, with some cows that they've had a couple of Solaires and they've gone on and calved ever since. You know what I mean? And they've had still start right from, but that's how we work it, and we found it works well for us, Andy.
And you'd have gone in the early days. Sorry to hark back to the early days, but it's what a lot of our listeners would be interested in as much as modern day. You would have gone over to Belgium a few times there and you've flown over there, gone and worked your way.
Yeah, we went with Tom Ashton a fair bit. Flew across to Belgium with him and went around a lot of farms, Saint Fontaine, Disarm, and some of the big herds and that, and went to the big bull open days in November. Saw all the tremendous big bulls and everything. So yeah, but going on to farms, I mean, we were on one farm and he'd done 25 Caesars in 1 month.
Really, yeah. Done them themselves. They did it themselves, didn't they? They trained themselves to do their own Caesars, didn't they?
Yeah.
Phenomenal when you think about it. I mean, I suppose people out there might do their own Caesars nowadays, but I mean, going back the way when they would just literally, they'd be prepared there. They'd have the veterinary clinic set up on the side of the farm, and just naturally dive in there and just see. And they'd Caesar the cows 2, 3, 4 times, Janet, I think.
Oh, more, some of them. I mean, we were at Liebermont 1 year in July, the show, and I mean, you could see cows there, and you could count 5, 6 scar marks, and if they were really a good cow, they'd go on to the other side.
The other side, yeah.
I mean, and you're like, my gosh. I mean, if you come to do a third Caesar with our vets, I mean, they're throwing a wobbly, if you know what I mean. They don't like it.
But they used to say that it was another prank that was aimed at, I suppose, at us blue breeders, was put a zip in the side so you just open it up every time.
Bit of a Velcro or something.
You kind of wonder why they didn't do that, really, to be fair. But no, it's just interesting, as I said, go back to those days. And there still are those blue breeders that are out there. And Tom Ashton was on this podcast and he said the guys still milk them out there, or they still, they would still milk. The milking ability that the blue had and still has really is unbelievable, and a lot of that.
Tremendous!
A lot of that, of course, goes back to the shorthorn roots, I suppose. But no, they would milk them out there, and as I said, the Caesar them. But the job has changed now, and the British blue, I don't know when it changed to the British blue, but the British blue now has become a phenomenal an integral part of.
Well, that's it.
One of them years. One of them years that we won exhibit.
It was. I can't remember the actual year when it changed. Because 1 year we won it as a Belgian blue, and then another year we won it as a British blue. So John's going to go and look on the
Go on, John, get out there, get the books out, you know he will. As long as he's not drunk too much on taking you out for lunch with his glass of cider.
No, he was driving. It was me that was drinking. He was driving.
He's driving you to your dinner and buying you flowers there, John. I tell you what, you're in heaven there. You really are. But just go.
Absolutely spoiled rotten today.
Just going back to the blues.
You'll get me back.
Going back to the blues now, as I say, an integral part of the British livestock scene, and as you said, the cross calves.
Yeah.
They're putting a blue onto. A lot of the guys are breeding some of these tremendous suckler calves for show, and even just the suckler calves all round. The blue gets a corner of that, doesn't it? It gets a quarter of, very often a quarter of what goes into some of these crossbred animals, and that starts making the job for the right animals. That starts making the bulls valuable for you again, Janet.
Well, that's it. I mean, you get guys wanting the blue bull to put onto a cow to save the female to put a limmy on it to get the limmy, the black with the white belly or whatever. Then that's the showman's stirk, if you know what I mean. That's where they're getting it, you know. And I mean, we find up here, if it looks like a black limmy, they'll put it up. If it looks like a blue, they won't put it up. You know, or black and white.
That's kind of been the way before. If you can breed them totally black, that would be the way. But that little bit of blue, and we saw the heifer that won of James Nesbitt that won the Highland Show, a little bit of blue in there, puts that big back
just that bump in it,
and James Alexander, James, if you're listening, or anybody's listening here, and if James got a big sale on next week with his another load of heifers in there, and those big back-ended heifers coming out of Ireland there, a blue in all of those that's producing that extra back end, and that it's kind of, that's where its niche it is now, as well as selling to the
Yeah, I mean, that's where it is. I mean, you've got to, they want these dark bulls, so that's what you've got to breed. Otherwise, they're not interested. Yeah. I mean, 2 Mays ago, we got a dark blue bull and a white bull. Now, the white bull was the better bull. Tremendous white bull. I mean, really was. I mean, he was the better of the 2 bulls, but the coloured bull made $8,000, and the white bull made $4,000.
Yeah. Yeah,
because he was white.
Yeah, no, it is the way, but that's early days, because it was other way around.
It'd have been the other way. Yeah, it'd have been totally the other way around. Yeah. You know, they'd have been all over the white bull.
And is there any? It's probably not a question for you to answer, but is there any genes out there that they can determine? I know I've talked to guys about this with the spotty sheep and various things. Are there genes out there they can determine that you are going to get a darker bull and a lighter one?
No, because the trouble is with the blue, the white's the prominent gene. I mean, so you can have a black cow and put a dark bull on it or a black bull on it and get a white calf. I mean, we've had it. You know, so I mean, but the white's still the prominent gene because that's how they were bred originally. Yeah. So it's still in there.
A Belgian white is what we should call them, really, then, is it?
Yeah.
But as I mentioned, and again, having studied or talked about the history of the blues, that they were bred up from a shorthorn, and you know, there's stories there may have been a bit of Angus in there as well, whatever they were bred up with, or Charolais, who really knows where the origins came from. Definitely the shorthorn was in there. And
there was a shorthorn, and there was the original Belgian cow, but I don't know what they put in it to get where they got to.
It's interesting. There's been a few debates nowadays about the myostatin gene and the various the double muscle and this myostatin gene showing up in Angus and showing up in shorthorns and various things, and some say it originally came from the shorthorn, but they chose not to. They chose not to breed from it in the UK, whereas over there they did. And the Belgians do that, don't they? They breed the double-muscled sheep, the Beltecs, obviously,
and the pigs and everything.
And double-muscled chickens, even the
bloody. I mean, you go on farms
as well, I believe. Or not,
but I mean, even the rabbits. Have you seen the rabbits that they've fattened?
Well, they are not get down a rabbit hole, John. They get stuck, will they?
No, they get stuck. I mean, we were on a farm once, and there was cages. And I said to John, there was fancy cows one side, and on the other side of this shed, there was these great big racks, these cages, and there was these rabbits in these cages, and they were enormous. Great big damn things. And these were for meat, these rabbits were.
Exactly, and you'll know a friend of mine, Jürgen de Poit, and Jürgen will probably be listening to this. He certainly does listen to the podcast there, and he's been very much involved in breeding the P-Train pigs, and of course those are, again, massive muscle in those. And it's phenomenal how one country... Really, I mean, I've got a lot of listeners in America, and they'll be poo-pooing. They won't even know what. Well, they will know what a blue is, but they won't really acknowledge it because they don't.
No,
rumps isn't really the thing in America. It's all about ribeye. But one country, one small country of that as well.
It's just predominantly bred onto this muscle all along.
Unbelievable, isn't it? And do we see
muscle and beer
and beer as well? And you guys are involved in a few shorthorns as well. Would I be right in thinking?
Yeah, we got into a few shorthorns a few years back. My son's quite into his shorthorns, so we've pushed them. So we've got a mixture of both now. So it's changes as good as the rest. You know, to me, they are totally different. They eat a lot more than the blue.
They eat a lot more than the blue. Is that what you said?
Yeah, they do. Oh, it's terrible.
Now, listen here. Let's wind back now. Now, listen here, you shorthorn breeders. Did you hear that? We'll say it one more time. Jan Green says that the shorthorn will eat a lot more than a blue will do. That's there you go. You heard it here first.
Yeah, they do. Honest, in the winter months, you have to give them more silage than the blue cows.
Okay.
It'll cause us turn now, won't it? I mean, you'll get no end of riff back. Oh, she's talking rubbish. She's talking rubbish. But they do. The blue cows, there'll be silage left in their trough, and they'll be sat at the back of the pens, and the shorties will still be feeding until it's all gone.
Okay, and the shorthorns, tell me a little bit about the origins of the shorthorns. You mentioned your son Robert, and he's obviously is the one behind the shorthorns. And where did you start with those, and how many of those do you have, and where are you going with those ones?
We started off, we ended up, it's a bit of a long story, but with a very good friend, he'd ended up with a heifer that he couldn't keep on farm because he's high health, and he'd come from Ireland, so he ended up coming bed and breakfast here. And then part of the deal, we had some embryos off it, and that's how we started. And that was Upper Mill Blytham. She was called a lot of things. she was a horrible cow. But anyway, so we've got them then, and then Robert got sort of hooked, and then we bought some Dunzire cows, and we've got Jane Landers cows, Cairnsmore cows, and we've bred up from them. We bought a cow off Andy Ryder. She was riding Esme, and we've just bred up from them. We had a Castlemount stock bull for a while, but he either threw great big calves or little calves, so we got rid of him, and we now got a Coxhill bull, and he's just doing the tricks. He's putting a lot of shape into the calves, and the nice wee calves when they're born, and just get up and go. Excellent. So we're really, Excellent. So that's where we are now.
You're double figures with the cows, the shorthorns as well, cows by the sound of it.
Yeah, we were about 20 of them. At the minute, we're about half of that. 20 blues, 20 shorties, and the rest are made up of commercial cows.
Right. Well, here's the question that I'm going to ask. An anonymous listener just phoned in and said, ask this question, Andy, is what about if you cross the shorthorn with the blue or the blue with the shorthorn? Is that not an ideal cross? Because you're going back to your...
Yeah, it is a nice cross. We've done that before. The shorthorn on the blue and the blue on the... Yeah, it's a lovely cross.
Any shorthorn
cow that's not pulling its weight pedigree-wise goes to the blue bull.
Yeah, no, that's so good.
And that's how we work. And then any blue cow that's wanting a rest, that's had to have a C-section or anything for the reason, goes to the shorthorn. And that's how we work it.
Don't use the Salers anymore. You're putting the shorthorn in there.
Yeah. Well, we had the last Salers bull that we bought. We couldn't keep him in the field.
No, I'm going to have to edit that out. You know that, don't you, Jan? I'm going to have to edit that out.
Yeah.
All the Salers
and
I haven't given them the...
No. The original Salers bull we had, he was the most beautiful bull we ever... Honest, he was gentle and quiet, and he never bothered anybody. And then poor lad, old age got the better of him, so we had to let him go. And we bought this young bull, and he just... As soon as he'd done his job, he wanted more cows, and we hadn't enough for him to keep him happy. So he used to wander.
Now, are you sure this is a bull you're not talking about? Not John now?
No, John doesn't wander anymore. Are you okay?
No, none of us now when we get to our age, that's fine. But
that's fine.
What went on to
you're the same. You don't go far now, I bet. you know your place, Andy. Now, come on.
What went on tour stayed on tour, and that's brilliant. Well, Janet, it's been absolutely fabulous to talk to you. Really.
It's been nice speaking to you.
And as I said, happy birthday, obviously, to you. And you were down at the Blue Sail in Carlisle, and gave you a bit of stick down there, and hopefully you'll have some. And you
were very kind, actually. You were very kind to me, actually. I was when I came out afterwards, I thought he's been very kind to me. I thought, what's he wanting? But I found out later that you wanted me on the podcast, so that's why you've been kind to me.
No, you did right. There was a couple of. I must admit, I left my notes back in the hotel. There was a couple of jokes that I missed out on you, but you never know. We'll be waiting around the corner for you, Jan. But I've.
You'll get me eventually.
Left them out for today, and you'll have. You took cattle down to Carlisle that sale, and you'll have cattle down to the. You take the cattle down to the winter sale as well, and.
No, we usually concentrate on the May sale.
May sale, yeah.
We find that the better the sale, so we'll have. We'll have one bull for next May. A young, he's a nice boy. He's actually nearly all black. As it is good. So that'll be for May. So that'll be his trip out.
Okay, so we look at.
So if you're down, we'll
remind me what you call your prefix and what the bull's called, so that I can tell our listeners what they came from.
Prefix is Oxcroft. And the short one's a Wrangham. Okay. And I can't remember the bull's name. The blue bull's name.
You're supposed to be selling. John, go and look it up, for God's sake. Get the books out again. Have another look.
I've got terrible. I used to know every pedigree, everything, off by heart. Boof. I could tell you anything. And now I have to go, wait a minute. Well, no, it's Oxcroft Sooty. That's his name.
Sooty, there you go.
Sooty.
Black one, fair enough.
This is nearly all black.
And you've got an absolute great excuse because it is your birthday today, and you've been out and been.
I've had a drink.
Outside with that John's delved in for. Did you get your fish and chips as well? Is that what you, down the front now?
Yes, yeah.
Excellent. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to the both of you. And John is a good ventriloquist in the background there, but we know he's there, and he's making sure that you're right, Jan, and he's always made sure that you're right.
It keeps me right.
I've always made sure that you're right. I'm not quite sure he's succeeded, but he's always tried anyway to make sure that you're right. And
he's tried, but he finds it hard going.
Well, fantastic.
Don't you? Well. Keeping me right. He's just gone, oof.
Oof. Yeah, well, oof it is. Jan, fantastic, right. Both of you to speak to you, and really enjoyed your company on Top Lines and Tails, and all the best for the future.
Okay, Andy, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's Top Lines and Tails podcast, and it's great to speak to Janet Green. As you can tell, she's an old friend of mine going back a long way there, and that's what Top Lines and Tails is about, I think, to talking to characters who've been in amongst the livestock industry, and people have got a story to tell. And as always, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Harbro, for their continued support and partnership rather than support that they put into Top Lines and Tails. And Harbro, of course, fantastic company there, based up there in Aberdeenshire. And their superb range of feedstuffs and nutritional advice, and the great service that they give to you people in and around Scotland and across the country there. And don't forget to check out Harbro there. Speak to your local representative or check them out on the internet there to find out what the company of Harbro can do for yourselves there. And while you're there, of course, on the internet, please do join our social media presence there, particularly Facebook there. Join our group there. There's thousands of us on there now in the community, and there'll be photographs and various other things to back up this and previous episodes, and be nice to hear from all of you there, and I hope you've had a great summer show season now coming to its end there, and I've really enjoyed meeting a lot of fantastic people tapping me on the shoulder and saying, Andy, I enjoy your podcast, and please just send us messages. It's fantastic to keep the Top Lines and Tails community still going there. So thank you to Harbro, thank you to all you listeners, and it's been a really excellent episode to talk to my good friend there, Jenny Green.